Hello out there, I'm the oldest nerd, and once again it's time for Talking Movies with Professor O, and Professor O is with us. How are you doing this morning, O? It's good to see you.
Doing great, Professor B. Glad
We're going to talk
to be
about.
here.
I'm so happy to be here as well. These are fun to do, and we get a lot of comments from people now on what we're talking about and want to add on to it. We had one that was when we were talking about the war movies, was giving us all kinds of background on the type of equipment that was used in Kelly's Heroes. For instance, the German tanks are basically American tanks that had a fiberglass put over them so they'd look more like Tiger tanks, but they're actually Sherman tanks. And that there were a lot of them left over in Yugoslavia after the war, and were still there by the time that movie was made. So it helped take care of some of their production cost out there. But I digress. We're talking about Bogart, and I have to say that two of my favorite films by Bogart we're going to talk about today.
Oh, fantastic. Right. We got the Maltese Falcon, Casablanca, Key Largo. What's the other one that's missing? That you
Well,
you
there's so
said
many
two of
good
your
ones.
favorite. Have you got a third? I was just
Well,
curious.
I do like the Kane Mutiny, although he's
Oh,
not
right.
really the lead in that. But it was a performance that basically stole the picture, in my opinion. And
Right.
of
Right.
course, he's done To Have and To Have Not. He's been in, oh gosh,
So
if I
many.
start naming them, I'm going to miss most of them.
Yeah, yeah. We,
But
we,
but
we'll lose we'll lose track of the three we're covering.
yes, yes. So the three we're covering is the Maltese Falcon, the Casablanca, and Key Largo, and
Right.
those were the. We'll start at the beginning. How about what do you think about what do you
Sure.
think about the Maltese Falcon?
Oh, I had not. I'm ashamed to say I had not seen it since film school, which was way back. And we covered noir in a course earlier this year, in fact. Uh, and I was not there the day that we I was co-teaching, and I wasn't there the day we did the Maltese Falcon. So this is my
Mhm.
making up for that. And
Was
just
that the first
brilliant.
film noir film?
Good point. Did you say was it kind of a yeah? And you could say it's prototypical film noir film
Uh,
made in the same year with the director the same age as Orson Welles. They're both 25, 1941,
wow.
and brilliant in their own ways. I think we all know the Welles story, and I think we lose track of the John Huston story, who's the same
Yes.
age, and making both of them, prototype film noirs, and it just incredible. I mean, it just scene after scene, uh,
Yeah.
just a mystery that pulls you in. Uh, you know, and is this it's a prototypical MacGuffin. I know we had other MacGuffins because Hitchcock's been at it already for 15
Right.
years by the time this film was made, but
Right.
it's
Hitchcock
still a
always said
MacGuffin.
that yeah, a good film would have a MacGuffin, which is something that drives the plot, something that everybody wants, and it doesn't have to be anything.
Yeah. But you're suckered into thinking
Yeah.
every time you're suckered in. Oh, they got to find the microfilm. The micro.
Right.
What's in this
Right.
microfilm? And North by Northwest. That's got it. And it turns out to be. It doesn't even matter if it's the way it pulls the people together into this psychological vortex, and then you learn about mankind.
I love
Just
what Hitchcock said, by the way, about modern horror films, and he said, and suspense films. He said they really don't know how to do it. Here's how you do it. You take a room, and the establishing shot is a ticking bomb under a chair. You
right.
pull back, and into the room comes two people, and they talk. It doesn't matter what they talk about because you're not listening to what they're talking about. You're saying, there's a bomb in the room, there's a bomb in the room, get out. And he said, the bomb does not have to explode. In fact, if it does, it messes it all up. But the fact that it's there adds that tension, and that's what really builds suspense. And I thought that's so simple and yet so brilliant.
Oh, absolutely brilliant. And yeah, that I think that was probably shot in the 60s, that him
Yeah,
describing suspense versus terror, and it's just brilliant.
versus blood all
And
over the place.
oh, yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
And oh, it works. Guillermo del Toro just loves Hitchcock. I know we're going sideways, but
Yeah.
anyway, that I always bring that up with current students because it's funny. Yeah, yeah. The current students, it's like I think we've lost touch with both John Huston and Bogey a
Yeah.
little bit. I mean,
Yes.
that's there's other actors, like in the I love Ebert's commentary for the Casablanca. He said, where Roger Ebert in his commentary says, film for most people starts with Star Wars in 1977.
Yeah.
And so we're going before that. What kind of, and this is a tough question too. What kind of, and I'm in the other films, there's kind of an overarching idea that's kind of a redemptive, where Bogey goes on this redemptive arc uh,
Yeah.
from this embittered man, and then he finds something. Does he find that in? It's a little bit different in Casablanca in terms
Yeah.
of an
In
overarching
Casablanca,
idea.
he goes from his isolationist person to a person who's going to get involved, which is kind of a parable for how the United States gets involved in the war.
That's a great
And
point. What a
in
good point. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. When we talk more into that, there's a whole lot of stuff that Jack Warner put into that film that would not have been there had it not been that subject. Otherwise, Bogart claimed it was the worst film he'd ever been in about the time they were making it. Nevertheless, back to the Maltese Falcon. There was violence in it, but it really wasn't the point of it all. I think there's the captain that dies in his office, and uh, and then of course his partner who gets shot early in the film, and I think though that what made that picture, in addition to Bogart's acting, was the supporting cast. This group of
Yeah.
people
Oh,
who later worked with him in a number of films. Sidney Greenstreet, his first theatrical film, and he practically steals it as Casper Gutman,
oh,
and just I love a man who loves to talk and a man who knows how to talk, and what should we talk about if we're going to talk? I mean, he did 5 minutes of
of talking
meaningless
about
chatter,
talking.
yeah, talking about talking, and and of course Peter Lorre, who
Oh,
despite having quite a few psychological drug problems and things like this, uh, could always play a very compelling character. And while
oh,
some people think that he always played the same part, the difference between his Ugarte in Casablanca and Joel Cairo in Maltese Falcon, they're completely different characterizations, and you believe them both.
right.
And
A
and
100%. You believe you, and they're very different motivations. There's
Yes.
some smarminess connects them,
Oh
but
yeah.
still, they're different people, but yet the connective tissue. Peter Lorre, just fantastic. Yeah.
Yes.
Uh, who else catches you as a supporting actor too? In
The actor that played Wilmer, I cannot think of his name at the moment, and it's on here somewhere. But
Right,
there was a little kind of inside thing there,
very
because
much so.
in the book, The Maltese Falcon, they established that Sam Spade was a homophobe, and
Right,
so they put in a gay character, which was Joel Cairo, which
right.
they could not say in the movies due to the movie code at the time. But the way that, especially when Joel Cairo first goes into Spade's office, there are little hints of his manner, the what is lavender on his calling card,
That's right.
and such as that. And then later when he gets all out of sorts at Gutman. And then the Wilmer, who is not a gay
Yes,
character, but Spade continues to refer to him as a Gunzel, which, if you
yes.
didn't know any Yiddish,
That's right.
you would think, oh, that means the young gun guy. Actually, that was a gay slur,
Exactly. That's right. That's
and
exactly right.
so
And
and somehow they allowed that in.
And it's
That
so
was in the
interesting.
script, of course.
He's trying to be so tough, and Bogey just swipes. There's no bogus Bogey in any of these films.
That's true.
That's a shout out to my cousin Darla. We came up with the term bogus Bogey. but but so he the way he just swipes this Wilma
Wilmer, yeah.
Wilmer the Gunsel aside. um you know
I
he
love the
even
line that he had about it. He comes in, with his guns in his pocket and leading him in, and Gutman says, "Oh, what happened here?" And he says, "A newsie tried to take his guns away from him. I got him back."
right. And at a certain point, there's even a scene that fades out where where Bogey is being threatened. He doesn't have the gun, and it fades out. And he's going to get the gun back. He's not going to get shot. And not only is he not going to get shot, he's going to get the gun back. And,
Yeah,
and once again, and the guns will he even tears up in a scene. It's almost, I mean, Bogey just manhandles him to the point that the guy tears up, and it's really, yeah, that's a great character. And another character, Ward Bond, is in that film.
yes,
Ward, and
yes,
I not very small role, but if you notice, so it's the two here is like us side by side, the two cops,
yeah. The
and
cops that he
Ward
knew and
Bond,
the cop that he didn't. Yeah, I don't know you, but I'll give you, what is it? There's a line there where he basically is going to give him every chance and all the breaks, most of the
right,
breaks, or something like that.
most of the right. And the Ward Bond character, to me, the one cop is a tough cop. I'm not gonna, you are Sam Spade. I'm just gonna treat you like this. But the Ward Bond character has this knowing smile, like,
Yeah,
yeah, and a sense of a little bit of empathy, a little bit of with Sam Spade, and
yeah.
just yep, I know you're brilliant. I know you're gaming this all out. But maybe, and all his lines are, maybe you need to think this through, Sam.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Well, that was something Effie said. You're too confident for your own good. That wasn't
right.
the line, but it was basically the intention of that. She said that you're faking your way through this, and one of these
Oh,
days you're not going to make it. Of course, he does through this.
and she is great too. The
Yes,
secretary
yes,
dies.
Effie. Yeah.
Apparently, I was just looking up. She only lived till she was 50, but
Wow.
she was
She
fantastic.
was. She was.
And one I think one reviewer mentioned this might be the only person. She might be the only woman that he really is in love with. In the film, that he really cares for her. I mean, and she can tell him what's what, and there's a certain bond there.
Yeah.
But yeah, yeah,
Well, obviously they know each other very well,
very,
in
yeah,
order to be able to be as, the way they react to each other.
right, right. She will tell him what's what. He'll listen to her advice.
Yeah.
It's a terrific relationship. They explore it just enough. You want more
Yes.
out of that relationship, but
There was an interesting thing. The view out of his window was the Golden Gate Bridge. It had just been finished, I think, at the time that the film was made, and of course, it was just a backdrop. But
yeah,
they put that in there, and I think they showed it in another scene, because that was a big deal at the time of the finishing of the Golden Gate Bridge.
wow, that's
Yeah,
incredible.
they used to
Yeah,
have to take a ferry over there.
right. How
Anyway,
we doing? Oh, what a film! What are we? I was going to say, maybe this connects a little bit up to it. There's one scene. Okay,
okay,
Maltese Falcon that I had that hit me, and then just you could just go off wherever. But the scene, you know what? The end of the movie, and I know we're jumping to the end of the movie. We did the Maltese Falcon. We've discovered the let's see, have we discovered it's, well, I don't know, plot spoiler, but then again,
well, I
probably
mean,
anybody watching this.
it's an 80-year-old film. I can't imagine that we're gonna
Okay,
spoil it much.
you got it. You got. But so at the end of the film, we know the Maltese Falcon it's not the real thing.
Right.
He's been going, and this MacGuffin has pulled them all together. What are you going to do to get this MacGuffin? The killings. And so at the end of the film, Mary Astor, and what is her real name? In the film, she goes by a
She
couple
goes
of
by
names,
three
but
different names, so I don't know that any of them were real.
it's Mary Astor.
Yeah,
So so she comes in. She's looking for to be saved, to be rescued by Sam Spade. And what's interesting is that parallels a scene so much like Chinatown, where
yeah.
in Chinatown, uh, Jake is there's Faye Dunaway, and Jake realizes he's been had, and he's it, and he's thinking, if I'm going to defend the entire profession, defend my reputation
Yes.
with the department and my career, and I love the way Sam Spade even takes it to all detectives everywhere.
Oh
I've got to
yeah.
call this woman in. I've got to call the cops, and the cops have got to come here and take her away. And he even says, maybe you'll get a break. Maybe they won't hang you by that pretty neck. Maybe you'll just end up with. And he says the same thing almost to Evelyn in Chinatown.
Yes, no doubt it was influenced by it, but I thought it was
Yeah,
kind of nice. If you're lucky, they'll only put you in for 25 years. I'll be waiting, of course. And
yeah,
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 I'm perfectly willing to give this a shot if you're
yeah. For
not
this,
wanting to kill
baby,
me
I
when you
love
get out
you.
of work.
Yeah, but of course the huge difference being there's no and what would have happened to Chinatown if Evelyn doesn't say my sister where the big thing in Chinatown revealing that her father with the incest
Yeah,
and then all of a sudden Jake has a tremendous and he realizes how that he just didn't catch it. What's really going on with this woman that Evelyn is hiding? But there's nothing like that, of course, in
no,
the Maltese Falcon
they
to
couldn't
save her.
talk
But
about
it's an
stuff like
interest.
that.
Those
Yeah,
scenes are just so similar. It's,
yeah. Well,
cops come in.
there've been a lot of parodies and influences that Casablanca that Maltese Falcon has made. I believe that Peter Falk, who did a pretty good Bogart impression, was in a
Right.
movie called The Cheap Detective, and
Ah,
in Murder by Death, he played another Bogart type character called Sam Diamond.
my, it's been so long. Murder by Death. We ran that when I was a projectionist. I haven't seen it since. I
Yeah,
need that would, yeah, yeah. Oh
it was
man.
a very silly movie, and but had all star cast. It had Peter Falk, it had David Niven, it had um, um, Truman Capote, Nancy Walker. Uh, I mean, I'm
Yeah.
a bunch of
Murder by
people. Murder by Death, and yeah. So I mean, they had all of the literary detectives in that. They had different names. It was Sam Diamond. It was Sidney Wang, played by Peter Sellers, instead of Charlie Chan. They had, which I guess the reason they don't screen that film anymore is terribly racist.
Oh, this it's interesting. Can the script differences? There's some in all these films. There were some fundamental script differences
Yes.
between script and what came out. I can't. The Maltese Falcon definitely in Key Largo, big differences there, and of course, like you mentioned, the casting differences with George Raft. The what could have
Yeah.
been, but
Well, the difference in Key Largo, of
Bogarts.
course, was that was produced by Bogart's company. And so he probably had a whole lot more control over
That's true.
script and casting and all that kind of stuff.
We can get
Whereas,
to that. Yeah,
yeah,
he threw the producer off the set. And now that you mentioned that was his own company,
yeah,
then that's why he had that kind of control
yes.
to do that.
But I mean, Maltese Falcon and Casablanca were done, I think, the same year or a year after, and so he was still just getting used to being a star of a picture. So
Or the you
a
know
lot of control was executed by the studios at that time. But
one I
go ahead.
one idea I didn't want to lose track of that you put it so beautifully because I had it, but the again kind of an overarching idea. We are talking about the arc of Bogey's character, and you can kind of see it with embracing a larger idea than yourself in Casablanca and Key
Yes,
Largo. How do you see
Yes.
that again in Maltese Falcon? I didn't want to lose that because you pointed that out.
Well, he said it very basically. He said it's bad for business.
Bad for
if
that's
if
right.
if you let somebody kill your partner and get away with it, it's bad for business. It's bad for everybody.
And
Once again, it goes to that larger point. It's bad for the world. But
and
yeah,
right. And you frame this as here we are at the cusp of World War II, not actively in it yet. In fact, is we're doing
right.
our best. We're debating whether we should go in. We're doing our best not to go in. And at some point, maybe, well, of course, we get Pearl Harbor, but we're even debating, is it bad for business not to go in? Is it, or is it, but it's the larger idea. Then you get Casablanca, the most, and feel free to go back to Maltese Falcon, but
Oh, sure.
you got me with your big picture idea. You get Casablanca on the cusp of World War II. There's even that line in Casablanca that apparently was written. I figured it was written. This line's written after December 7th,
Oh yeah. Oh yeah.
Rick,
Because it
yeah,
was it
Rick
was
is thinking,
yeah.
what's that?
He's talking to Sam. He says it's December
Yes.
1941 in Casablanca. What time is it in New York? And Sam says my watch stopped. And he says they're sleeping there now. I'll bet they're sleeping all over the world. That idea that war is coming. Of course, the war started in 1938. It's just the U.S. didn't get involved
Yeah, the
uh,
U.S.
until
Yeah.
December 7th, and then things changed.
Oh,
But
you mean
but
things were happening before we got involved? I didn't. There was stuff going on. Yeah.
yeah, there's a film
We
about that. I think that was a Jimmy Stewart film where he was fighting in China before the Americans got involved in the war as a
or I
mercenary.
always think of To
Yeah.
Be or Not to Be is a
Well, yeah.
great made in 43, but it's trying to wake us up. It's so with
Yes.
Jack Benny.
Jack Benny was a much better actor than he was generally given credit for because he used that as comedy fodder in his radio show. That he would be in a movie and then they would joke about how bad it was, and he actually did some very solid acting. This was a comedy, but it was a light comedy, and
Yeah,
then the one that they lampooned the most was To Have and to Have Not, which was a dramatic role which he
right.
played very well. But the movie didn't do well at the box office because they saw Jack Penny, thought it was a comedy, and it wasn't a comedy, and it didn't do well. But his acting there was brilliant, and it became a running joke, as most of the jokes on his show were a running joke that he was terrible and to have not, and he'll never be asked to be in a
Oh
movie
yeah.
again.
To
And
be or not to be when he says to just his acting when he says to
yes,
be or not to be, and then oh good grief, Stryker, no, the actor that played Stryker, good Lord, I'm jumping to airplane, but the same the actor that played Stryker in Airplane. God, I'm having a brain malfunction there. But he gets up because that was the cue for him to get up and go see Jack Benny's wife
right,
appeared
right,
that, and so he would get up. Here he's giving this soliloquy, and the guy gets up, and Jack Benny just, what are you doing, leaving
yeah,
Hamlet? And that's good acting on Jack Benny's part. And
yes,
and here he is playing an actor playing an actor, which has got to be hard to do. But we're
yes,
digressing big time. Back to Casablanca. You're right. And so the big idea in Casablanca would be then this sense of, okay, we've got to get involved. We've got to look
yes.
beyond our own
And
nose
this
and
came
get
directly
involved.
from Jack Warner. Michael Curtiz was the director who, after 25 years of living in the United States, still didn't speak very good English. And
Right.
there was all of the audio was recorded on stage, on set for the film, and there was some kind of dropped piece of equipment or so and so, and the Curtiz goes to the lighting director and yells, "You ruined my picture! You ruined my picture!" Which that was what they pointed out that he his broken English became very uh, refined once he was able to get mad enough at somebody. But
Right. That's
the, but
funny.
but but one of the things about his direction, and you know this better than I do, is that there wasn't a single shot that everything in the picture wasn't important.
Oh, right. And that's interesting in the Roger Ebert commentary. He says there's the question of is he an auteur? because you look at like Roger Ebert mentioned, you look at a Wells film or like nowadays a Quentin Tarantino film, and you can tell 5 minutes in who the director is. But Curtiz just follows the story. Everything is in service of the story. But I would say if you do that so well and you invest us so much in the story, like Ron Howard, who you could probably is he
Yeah.
an auteur? But I would say Curtiz, I would say both of them are because if you're looking at, I know it's not a showy thing or what's the style, but still, if the style is to invest us in the story so much, there is a sense, to me, there's a sense of authorship there.
Yeah.
And yeah,
Now, there was all kind of talk about how many writers that they had on the project that they could not seem to put this unproduced play into a screenplay. And finally, Howard Koch was the last person to go in and fix that. He had written the script for War of the Worlds, interestingly, for radio, and then he went with Orson Welles and his players and was hired on as a fixer on this script. However, what he did mostly was put in a lot of the stuff that Jack Warner wanted in it.
right.
Jack Warner and his brothers at the time were, of course, very anti-Nazi at a time
That,
when the
some of
U.S.
the
was very
earliest,
neutral, and they wanted to
right.
make a statement with this movie, and they were the ones that Jack Warner specifically wanted the scene where the Germans are playing the Fatherland, and then
Oh,
they break in with La Massiere. That should be not the little five-piece band that they had in there, but the entire Warner Brothers orchestra. And so, suddenly, this becomes overpowering. And it was one of the most powerful scenes in the picture. And that was
Vive
Jack
la
Warner.
France!
Yeah.
And I love the character, the woman. She's a great character actor too. The woman
Yes.
that it was I think it was Bogey's nominal girlfriend at the beginning of the film, and
Yeah.
then she goes over to the Germans, and then and that the but the song pulls her back
Yes.
and to the right, yeah, and it's just oh
Now she was
God,
willing to go
and
with
it,
anybody to buy her a drink, but that's the except for Sasha,
yeah,
unfortunately. and
that's
and
right.
Sasha was kind of a comic character. But what's interesting about that is how many people who are actually Europeans that were in the cast. Those are people that had
Oh,
been displaced by the war already, that were fairly big actors in their home countries, but unknown over here. And they were put in this film and gave it a patina, if you will. You believed that all of these people were refugees in Casablanca because none of them really looked like Americans.
that's exactly right. I mean, it was so
Then, of
authentic,
course, you
and
have
it
you have Sidney Greenstreet, who obviously was not one of them. He was obviously a person of who traveled the world and made money out of
I
it.
wish I had a
And
Fez. Yeah.
yeah, Peter Lloyd. And I understand that the thing with the fly swatter and the blue parrot was his idea,
Oh, brilliant.
and
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 it,
and
it
it's a great,
it
yeah.
told you volumes about what kind of place it was,
Yeah.
just
And
when
you're
it's
looking
swatting
for
a
a way
fly.
to and a great way to end the scene. By the time you second scene, that's just perfect. Yep, cap the scene. It just it's
Yes,
just so cool.
it really
Oh
was.
my
And of
God.
course, Peter Lorre, who was only in the first scene of the film, and once again, he's all you think about through much of it.
Right.
Is we don't know if he um, died in prison or died trying to escape.
And the guy that right. Oh God, Peter, yeah, died in prison or died. There's yeah. Life
Actually,
is cheap.
suicide or died trying to escape. We haven't decided yet. And
But as you
and
know, life is cheap. It doesn't really matter. It just I love that line, how he died, but life is
yeah,
cheap, you must remember. And the and
you
who's
must
the
you
guy?
must you must despise me. Well, if I thought about it, I probably would. I thought it was a pretty good line too. It's a way two friends would talk.
Yeah,
It was that kind of thing. And
Cuddles. I love the guy Cuddles, the head
yes,
waiter. I
yes,
can't remember his name, but they called him Cuddles.
yeah.
Warner called him Cuddles.
Yeah, yeah,
Rotund guy.
he played I think Emil, but yeah, that's the other thing that bothered me about that. In most of his lines, he talked about there being a a a baker there and a bellboy, and it was neither a hotel nor was it a restaurant at all. Nobody ever saw any food in Rick's
Any food?
place.
Yeah.
It was all drinks and one caviar scene with Major Strasser, and I think that was pretty much the only.
And you get in, and really, when you think about it, it's not only you're looking at the bigger in the cusp of World War II. I mean, now we're into World War II, and it's the big picture, the big idea, the French national anthem, just
Yeah.
and taking us to a bigger idea. But it's also when you think about a forward-looking film, it's an ensemble, it's a true ensemble cast. You've got the
Oh yes.
character actor, but by the time you get to Sam, what an important character, and
Yeah. Unheard of
just
in the movies at that time. Usually, black characters were servants, and
exactly
Sam was a partner. They established he was a minor partner, but a partner in the bar.
a
They
partner.
had been close friends in Paris. Interestingly, Dooley Wilson was a drummer. He didn't know how to play the piano, and the piano was a prop. It didn't work at all. It even the keys didn't even move. But it was believable enough, I suppose.
Oh, totally. It has at least two songs. The first song is a lot of fun,
Yeah.
and yeah, and and then Claude Rains. I mean,
Oh yes.
uh
Yes.
just
I know
I
that
have
you have
loved.
never sold any permits to leave the country here. That's why we allow you to continue to operate. You said, I thought that's because we let you win at roulette. That is another reason, just without even a break.
Right, right. That's another.
Yeah,
Yes.
Claude Rains and Bogart had the best patter between them. That where all of their conversations, they are talking around what they know each other knows about them,
Right,
but not
right,
admitting to it. It's an interesting little exercise in speaking around the actual subject, except the one point
right.
where he does ask a direct question and Bogart blows him off and he says, teach me to ask you a direct question. They very well had this dance that they did in everything except in the later scenes where
Right.
Louis says, well, this isn't going to end well, especially for you.
Right, right, and yeah, and the dance, kind of being the that Bogey has got a sentimental side to him, and it's underneath it all, underneath that hardcore crust, there's something there, and underneath, it's really hard to believe with Claude Rains, but he's a patriot.
Yeah.
Underneath, gonna throw away that fishy water.
Yeah.
I
Why did you
love
come to
that.
Casablanca? I came here for the waters. The waters,
Yeah,
there are no waters. This is the desert. I was misinformed.
and that I
It's a great
just
line too.
now, boom, there you go with the Vishu water. That's,
Yeah.
everything ties together. It
Yes.
just, yeah, just right. And I'll throw this in. I know yeah, the commentary again, Ebert, where I didn't know that apparently the last line, this will be the beginning of a beautiful friendship. It wasn't there for several
No,
days.
it was looped in
Viewing the
later.
film,
Yeah.
watching yeah, and so they just put it in, added it
Now they
in.
say
Yeah,
there really wasn't any conflict as to how it was going to end. They had not finished writing it, but they weren't exactly sure how they were going to get there. Obviously, he could not. Ingrid Bergman could not stay with him. That would have broken the movie code because she'd be cheating on her husband if she did that. So
right,
and they did have a scene that kind of suggested that, but didn't show it.
right.
And then there was, and in fact, in the conversation that he has with Laszlo at the airport, he indicates that yes, he took some advantage of her in his apartment, but that's about as far as that went. But they certainly couldn't let him win out on that point. But I think they
Right.
just weren't quite sure what to do on the situation with getting rid of Major Strazza and the round up the usual suspects. I think
Oh,
was what they came up with,
it's
and
brilliant.
which was already in the beginning of the film, so it worked.
Yeah, it was in the beginning. It worked again, and there he is it's just so obvious that Bogey has shot him.
Oh yeah,
but, but no, the usual suspects. Off we go to get him.
but it follows perfectly of how they reacted to each other. It was, one would say a lie and the other would say a lie, and they both knew that they were lying to each other and both knew what the truth was. But it was, only would only be not known by anybody who was listening in.
Which takes us to one of the best lines. You're winning, sir.
Yes,
I am shook. Yeah,
shocked. There's gambling going on here.
there's so many useful lines in this film you could use in real life. That's
Well, I love that there's a line that's not mentioned as much that I also like in this, where after the thing with the competition between the German soldiers and the French national anthem, Strasse goes to Louis and says, "You've got to close down this place." And Louis says, "Why? Everybody's having such a good time."
yes, that's exactly right. And then
Kind of
he's
revealing
coming
for
up
a
with the
moment where
reason.
he stood.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. He's so sympathetic. Everybody's having such a good time. Why should you
Also, his
put us
facial
up here?
expressions. When we first meet Strasse, they're walking away from the plane, and he said, "You'll find Casablanca a bit warm this time of year." And the German says, "We Germans have to be used to all climates because
Right.
apparently they're going to." And you look at the look on Claude Rains' face when he's saying that. You can tell that he hates his guts, and it's just a flash, but nothing
Oh,
else.
that's exact. Oh, and that flash occurs brilliantly in like character actors. The woman that plays the guitar, kind of
Yeah.
like maybe with a Spanish background. When the Germans walk past her, her face is like, yeah, yeah, and it just just you can tell she despises them, but yet she's still smiling, and just
Yes. Yes.
every detail. And back to
Once again,
thinking
pretty
about
big
the
actors,
acting.
pretty big European actors that are now doing um, supporting actor parts in this film, and
Fascinating.
it tells you just how well constructed the film was, and it really was. Now,
Yeah,
there was
yeah.
one other thing that
Like
was
thinking about
added.
Casablanca.
Yeah, I'm still thinking about Casablanca, and
The acting is just incredible. If it
oh, Ingrid
the
Bergman. We need to talk about Ingrid Bergman.
and
So
I was going to go to that because
retake,
and
retake.
to me
Okay, we've talked all around Casablanca right now, and we haven't said a word about Ingrid Bergman. So let's go.
exactly. And there's this. I wanted to ask you about her. Yeah, yeah, yeah. I was going to ask you about her acting in the scene because, well, the pivotal scene. It's Rick is almost to the point, and he does this. God, Bogey does this so well. You're going, come on, Bogey, find that, find that warmth inside you. Yes, yes, we know you got the crust, and we know you're bitter, and we know why you're bitter. But find that inside you to find some empathy with this woman. And so in that pivotal scene, and her acting's fantastic all the way through. But
Yes,
and so I want to, with holding that in mind, see her acting is just brilliant to finally reach Bogart. But one thing Ebert mentions in his character commentary, he's talking about her acting. But one thing that hit me when Bogey finally finds his center, finds that warmth. You can just see it. I mean, it's she's crying. She even pulled out a gun. She's gonna, threatens to
yeah,
kill him. He knows no that she's not gonna do it. But then she turns around, cries, and then you can just see him shift. And finally, he's going to realize this idea. This is bigger than me, and so he shifts
yeah.
and holds her. And to me, his acting is incredible at that point.
Well, I mean, she has the face. There's just something about her. If she's on camera, you just drawn into her. You can understand
Yeah,
why everybody fell in love with her.
yeah,
You can
star power.
understand
Yeah,
just how torn she is
yeah,
between two people that she's obviously devoted to, but can only have one.
right.
Really, the only bad acting job was done by, and I don't know if it was his acting or if it was just how it was written, but we're supposed to believe that
Oh, right.
and
Laszlo.
Laszlo, and
Yeah,
I don't see it. He's just
I,
kind of a schlub. He comes in and says, "I'll have a martini." I mean, anybody could have played that part, and
that's a
and I don't know if
great
it was
point.
in the writing or if they wanted to make sure that nobody was on his side, generally speaking, in the romance area, or if he was just that bland an actor. I've not seen him in anything else to know, but
Yeah, I think yeah, that's a great point. Paul Henright.
Paul Henry, yeah, yeah,
Because
yeah, could be.
yeah, and he is in. I've spotted him in other things, but you almost wonder if it was built the way you brought that up. Was it then to make us really think this is the love from the mind that she fell in love with his mind, and she talks about this. She was younger when they met in Norway. He's this
Yeah.
older man that the concepts, the ideals of the human race and how we need to pull together and find love, all those wonderful United Nations type ideals, that kind of love versus the love, the chemistry, the love of the heart. And so she's got those two types of love.
Yeah.
And so maybe that's to make us empathize, think this is the love of the mind. And so, like you mentioned, there's going to be no true rivalry there.
Yeah.
It's different types of love. But
Yeah,
uh, but
and
that's a
I
good
think I
point.
think that there was two places where he did actually a pretty good job. One, of course, in the battling band sequence where he leads the
Oh,
play it,
yeah,
and then at the very end, his exchange with Bogart with he says, welcome to the fight.
right. Welcome to the. That's exactly right. That's exactly. It's funny. It's almost no lines and short lines, and that's where you really believe who he was. Welcome
Yeah,
to the fight. That's it. I got a question for you.
yeah,
Yeah, I love the way you're always talking about special effects and practical effects and how we did these things. And I love when they cut to Bogey's memory and he's and what a great way to cut to it. His films can be so corny and taking us back. We got to know the backstory, but it's just a brilliant backstory. Bogey's been drinking all night. It's
yeah.
4 a.m. and he finally go back to the memories. And it's like bad rear projection. We can see the
Yes.
yeah, we can see the French monument in the background. What am I,
Well, they don't
the
even
Champs
try to make it.
Elysees?
They don't try to make it realistic because
No,
they change scenes without
they
cutting
in
away
the
from
middle of it.
cutting away from the car.
And Ebert
So
says that's the way memory works. There they are. We change, and all of a sudden they're in the countryside. It just dissolved in the background, and now
I
we're
think
in
my
the
memory works that way only because I've seen too many films like that
yeah.
with bad rear projection.
But it's just so. What do you think? It almost feels like the
Also,
model
the
of the
plane
plane.
landing, yeah, that was the
It's
worst. It
so
just
bad.
went plop. Yeah,
A plop on the model of the plane is bad every time.
yeah. And
And
then of
it
course it's
almost feels like
obviously
there's
a
a
cutout.
reason for
There's
that.
there's yeah, it's a flat. It's a flat that Strasser gets out, and they put it far enough back in the scene to where you can't tell it's a real plane. And I think it was a
Right.
smaller model anyway, uh, in the last scene. So yeah, there was nothing to be said for. They did some matte shots, but they might as well have just left the clapper in there saying matte shot.
Yeah. And when we see the plane flying, it's just so, and it's here we are filming in 40, 41, 39, yeah, 40, 41. And
Yeah,
you can do planes better than this. Movies have done planes way better than this.
yeah, but they
It
shot it in a
almost
week,
feels
so
like
they
there's a
didn't. Yeah,
reason. Yeah,
Warner
it
didn't
almost
have the
feels like
best special effects department, really. RKO had was pretty good at that, and
right.
and
Oh my God. Yeah, yeah.
yeah,
Warner, no.
Warner wasn't concerned about that. Although I have to say that the shot from the long shot of Casablanca, and as they they tilt the camera down, they go from the matte shot into the reality, and that is the smoothest shot I've ever seen.
That's a
Where they
super
go
shot. Yeah,
they go from the matte shot into the actual sets, and you believe it.
it's fantastic. And like you said, you believe it because of all the extras and all the true
Right,
diversity of
right.
everybody there. And that is, so you got that. So it almost made me think, is there a sense of unreality about this plane? Because maybe because it's the unreality of this place. It just,
It's a
and yet
possibility. It's a
Yeah,
possibility that they went with that idea. I think that though they shot it in what, a week, and so they really didn't have
I
a
think it's
lot of
bad.
time
I think it's the
to do
Warner
any
special
big,
effects department.
yeah, any big post
I don't
production
think
if they
they're.
wanted to
Yeah.
do it. The other thing is, you never saw two shots of Rick's that looked the same. And I understand that the sets moved around however Curtiz wanted it for that moment. So you never knew how big the place was or where exactly everything was located. The bar was sometimes on the side, sometimes it was in the back. The gaming room, who knows where that was? They never really
Yeah,
showed
yeah.
where
Up
the
some
gaming
stairs.
room was. And yeah, we
Yeah.
know Rick's apartment is right upstairs along
Ah,
close to the
right.
band, but other than that, we don't have a good idea, and it's because the set was movable, and they moved the set around to set for shots.
Which goes to say how far our minds will go to create a sense of continuity because
Yeah.
we want that sense of continuity. And so I
Yes.
never even now that you mention it, I can see what you're talking about. But in it on the other hand, it just felt you just were grasping for that sense of continuity there, and you just made it for yourself, and it worked. Were there two pianos? It felt like
Yeah.
or
There's
does
there's
it just
something
get
also
rolled
there's
around?
something also that I used to believe. I'd read somewhere that there were no ceiling fans in Rick's. They were over at the Blue Parrot, and sure enough, the Blue Parrot did have ceiling fans, but so did Rick's. They
Oh,
didn't
okay,
show it but once, but they were there,
good deal.
and it surprises me sometimes to see a professional movie critic who miss something like that after probably seeing the
That is
film
it. Yeah.
more than I have.
Oh, there's you could, but you can miss so the density of
It
that
really
film.
is. It really is.
The oh, and we didn't even talk about the light. And I know we need to get to Key Largo. And again,
Yeah.
this big idea. What's the and like you said, to get us started with this get this gigantic event, a titanic event, tectonic event, a World War II surrounds all these films. And so you go to the end of the world. So we'll get that in a minute. Whoops, I sidetracked myself. We were talking about Casablanca. Anyway, Key Largo is fantastic too. Are we
Let's go
ready
to
to
Key
jump
Largo.
in?
Let's go to
Okay,
Key
you got
Largo. I wore my Key West shirt just so we could.
yes, that's right. And like I said, I've got this is a tribute to Moss Heisley. But
There you go.
anyway, and you're right. Key
Everything is
West,
tied into Star Wars. I mean, there's certainly
absolutely.
there is there's some aspect of Casablanca that's probably there.
That's
Um,
exactly yeah. And,
I
and,
mean,
and
could Jabba the Hutt been played by Sidney Greenstreet?
oh my, if he would have played, yeah, if he would have played Jabba in that first scene that was deleted, they would have kept that scene,
Yes,
and Jabba would have been totally fine as Sidney Greenstreet all the way through.
yes,
Oh, and Peter Lorre could have been an assistant. They would have,
yeah.
that would,
I'll have to think about where Peter Lorre would have been there, but
yeah, but he would have been helping Jabba for sure at some point. I could just see that. Well, and there you go. That's Casablanca like in a way. You got the whole with the Java scene and where his base of operations there. But back to Key Largo where we get the big
okay.
picture. It's 1940 what 48?
Uh,
I'm guessing 48-ish in
1948. It's
48.
1948,
Okay.
and
And oh, I know what we were going to. Well, this unites both of them. Film noir. It unites all of them. Film noir. And
oh
the
yeah,
one last thing about the lighting is ridiculously good in Casablanca
yes,
as a noir. I just it just and where what's more important and of course we heard this with noir. What really happens is in the shadows. That's what's most important. And of course in Casablanca that's true. But so you got 1948 and so big picture here as we're looking at what's happening at the times is now we've passed World War II. We've lived through World War II. 450,000 men. We went from the Depression to World War II. 450,000 men died. And instead of making films that you would think, hey, the war's over, now you'd be thinking of it'd be time for the gold diggers of 1948 or something happy, something just
yes,
in color, even those films in color. But no, we're in black and white and film noir, black film. Why are the French are noticing? Why are all our films after World War II? They hadn't watched films in World War II because they couldn't. All of a sudden, they see American films starting in 1945, and this whole similar kind of genre has started up, film noir and black film. Why are we doing black film? Why aren't we just partying and celebrating that we won the war? But instead, all those social things going on. Um, Out of we go from the Depression to World War II. After World War II, there's even a slight recession, and then we do get the economy going again. But then instead of our friends, the Russians, they're now our implacable enemies with an
Yeah.
atomic bomb by 1949. We
Hmm.
were thinking it would take. Our scientists thought it would take till 1973 before they got the bomb. They get it in 1949, and then you've got the House Un-American Activities Committee, and think how do you think some of this is in Key Largo? Some of these things are in Key Largo in a film in near
I
Key West.
Yeah, I think that you have this idea where Bogart, this time playing Frank McCloud, is a another loner,
Right,
except he's kind of a drifter and he ends up in this hotel, Largo Hotel. And at the same time that a gangster played by Edward G. Robinson and his gang
oh,
happened to be going that way as well. And the at first, Bogart is kind of lumped in with them in that they think that they're the same kind of people, which they're really not. And and then the hurricane comes and that changes a lot of the tension that
right.
is there. And I thought what really hit me about that one was not so much the post-war kind of thing, but the idea that gangster films by that time were just they were out of vogue. During
Right.
the late 30s,
Oh,
that was
great
all there
point.
was,
Yeah.
and by 1948, by the post-war, we didn't worry too much about gangsters after that, and so that's when we had Yankee Doodle Dandy came out with there, where the person that's often confused with Edward G. Robinson was playing George M. Cohan. He couldn't do gangsters anymore. So
Right.
that's
And Yankee Doodle Dandy.
yeah,
Yeah.
James Cagney, and
Right.
and so what they seem to be doing in this film is having kind of gangsters out of water,
Yeah.
if you
And
will,
yet
fish out of water kind of
the
story with these.
frustration. I love John Barrymore's frustration with Barrymore's frustration with the fact that they're still here. That the
Yeah,
fact that here it is, we fought this fight, and they reference this idea that I must have been a quote from FDR, and they refer to it as one of the big picture ideas,
yeah,
and then it connects to the fact that Rocco is still amongst us. That after all we've given up, he's given up his son. He's lost his son. He's Lauren Bacall, the daughter-in-law. She had no life, not much of a life after the son, so she comes to live with her father-in-law. And after all of that sacrifice, these characters can still be with us. And I love the way you brought that up. That yeah, it embodied by a gangster out of time from the gangster films, and now
yeah,
all of a sudden they shouldn't be around, but it's a perfect person to bring back to deal with these leftover issues. Why are you still here?
yeah,
Uh,
and
and
very much so. I mean, the war having ended was supposed to have created a utopia for us, and it really didn't, because there were things that were there before that are still there, and
right,
even from the gangsters' point of view, the things aren't quite as good for them as they might have expected them to be. Uh,
right.
so
Maybe
it's kind of an interesting
I
thing.
love that discussion. Just talk, just talk. He talks to his the big guy. Wasn't Candy? Was it Candy? The guy was always chewing gum.
Yeah,
A great character actor. He's always chewing
I believe
gum,
so.
and it's the calm before the storm. You know the storm's coming, and Rocco and the winds rattling, and Rocco saying, "Just talk, somebody talk." And so he talks about long, maybe prohibition's coming back.
There's a great line. There's a
It'll
great
be
line
great.
here. There's a great
Yeah,
line here while Rocco looks worried about the storm, and
right.
Frank says, "You don't like it, do you, Roscoe? The storm, Rocco, the storm. Show it your gun, why don't you? If it doesn't stop, shoot it."
Exactly. If it does, that is such a good line.
Yeah,
Yeah, and you could just
and
see, you can almost see him go out there and try and shoot it. Yeah, yeah,
yeah, and so you have between him and Lionel Barrymore, who are,
yeah. Lionel Bear. Yeah.
yeah, they're was it Lionel Barrymore or John Barrymore? I get them confused.
Oh
Lionel
God, I
Barrymore.
didn't mean to throw.
Okay, Lionel Barrymore. But anyway, they play the tough part, but they're obviously scared of what these guys are going to do, and yet they're going, if they're gonna get shot, they're gonna get shot. So they go ahead and throw all the insults they can at them, and that's kind of Bogart's character anyway. He kind of stands on the edge of disaster and plays it. Although I thought that the hurricane and the aftermath of it were strangely accurate. You know, we both lived in places where hurricanes happen,
Yes.
and they are devastating for some people, and certainly we don't want to downplay that. But if you've been through a hurricane and had only some, damage done to your property that you're able to repair, that's kind of what most people have experienced in that have been through these things, and they show that here. It didn't blow the hotel completely down.
No.
They've had these before. They knew how to close their storm shutters and deal with leaks later. But they came out of this in kind of a perhaps a symbolic way, from the tension of before the storm to this somewhat of a calm after the storm, where
Right.
they don't really care what
Absolutely.
happens at that point.
Yeah, and two things to think about. One, they're completely different from each other. But the four Seminole Indians have got to, they're on the porch the entire time in the storm. It's
Yes.
one of the saddest things. They look up to Lionel Barrymore as a hero. He always protects them. He watches out for them. He deals with them
Yes.
incredibly, even for its, I mean, for its time. It's such a progressive film. It's the and including, oh my goodness, um, in the plot, uh, oh good grief, Rocco is won't let the Indians into the lobby. Um, he even and then there's a couple of young Seminole young men that are have been accused of something. They actually may have. Just not a big crime,
Yeah.
and but the detectives are after them. The police detectives are after them, and at the end, the sheriff thinks that he's confused. He should be able to read the room better than he does. But the sheriff comes in to the lobby, and I mean, it's obvious these are gangsters. I mean, it's we know the plot, but still, it should be obvious that these are gangsters. Nothing is right about this. Nothing's correct at all. And so he wanders outside and he sees the body of his deputy that was killed by Johnny Rocco. But he blames the Indians. He uses his prejudices to then blame the Seminole Indians, and then he goes after
Yeah.
the Seminoles, shoots the two guys who really they were going to turn themselves in. Their crime was not major at all. Whatever it
Yeah.
was like shoplifting or something. They were going to turn themselves in. And but his but and then the other line that gets me, and so then oh yeah, well, it's connected. Then the sheriff comes in and he just feels terrible once he knows the truth that Rocco had killed his deputy, not the Seminoles. And he comes in and and then and he wants to blame himself. And then I think it was, who was it that shifted the blame? One of them says, no, you're not to blame. It's a bigger picture than this. And at the end of that line, I wrote it down. It's so good that oh, I've got things, my notes upside down.
Oh yeah.
It's Barrymore saying that he says it seems we can't. He's thinking about trying to help. He's always tried to help the Indians, and he says it seems we can't do anything but harm the Seminoles, even if we try to be good to them. And I thought, wow, what a line. No matter what our attempts, talking about, and you think of society, progressive attempts to help, that sometimes so much ends up backfiring. And that was an amazing line.
Yeah.
And then the other thing that got me too, I was going to ask you, the when you're looking at Bogey, we're talking about, and he's got this cynical exterior, or is it
Yes.
cowardly? And I was gonna, how do you feel when you're in watching it? Do you think that he's biding his time, putting on this cowardly, cynical act? I'm in this for me. I'm not going to help. Or do you think he's really the guy all along? Do you think he's really the guy who's brave enough and kind enough to give um, Claire Trevor, the guy that gives her a drink? Is he that guy underneath the whole time, or does he shift during the movie from this cynical exterior to becoming? What do you think? Is he? Did I
Well,
frame that okay, Byron?
yeah, yeah. His cynical characters that he's played before, and seeing that
Right.
this was his company that produced the film, he probably would go back to some of the things that he liked about previous films he was in. I would think
Oh, good point.
that he always starts out as under a mask.
Right.
Rick was
Right.
under a mask. Spade was under a mask until the very ending when he had it all worked out. Otherwise, he was faking it toward the police. He was faking it toward the gangsters and especially to Sidney Greenstreet in that scene where he blows up and then leaves the apartment and his hands are shaking, but he's got a smile on his face. I pulled it on him, kind of thing. So I think that was what he was doing. I think that his true self was always there, but
Is always there.
as
Yeah.
a defense, you put on the cynical "I don't care." I
Right.
used to know
And
people
of
in
course,
school like that. They would say, "Oh, I don't care," when they got in trouble, and of course they did, but
right.
they couldn't let you know it. Never
And
see.
practically, he's always thinking. And so, basically, when Rocco offers him the gun and says, "You can shoot me," and he knows he can't do that. He's
Sure.
thinking all the time. He says, "Yes, I may take Rocco down, but then his gang is going to take everybody else down." And the next in line will become the next Johnny Rocco. This is not the
Yeah,
place.
won't stop.
So
Won't stop.
he continues to wear that mask. He wears it so well
And Rocco
that
knows that too. So I mean, that's a pretty safe bet. Take the gun and shoot me, because he knows he's not going to take that up. It's just a way
right,
of trying to humiliate him,
right.
and that
But
was what they were doing through the whole thing. Speaking of fear, there's a note that I saw here on you're mentioning the singer. What was her name? That was oh shoot.
uh, Claire Trevor,
Claire
I think
Trevor.
the girl. Oh,
Yeah,
one best supporting actress for
John
that.
Huston. Yeah, John Huston would not let her rehearse her song,
That's right.
and so it was real fear, and not because she was in front of gangsters, but she was in front of Bogart, Lionel Barrymore, and Edward G. Robinson singing an unrehearsed song, and her nerves showed on screen, and of course that was what Huston wanted, but kind of an
Yeah,
underhanded way to do it.
brilliant. He kept on saying, "No, Claire, we'll rehearse it later." And she was Dallas in Stagecoach, and just a
Yeah,
terrific actor. And so, yeah, we'll rehearse
and
it
not
later.
really a
No problem.
singer anyway. Yeah,
Yeah, but so it was perfect, and I actually thought she pulled it off pretty well. I thought
yeah.
Rocco and the guy, he shakes his head. And Rocco, who it's funny. So to be this self-secure gangster, he's always taking in input. It's like he never thinks an original thought. So he looks, is she any good? The guy says no, and then of course, but that's when Lauren Bacall, when Bogey gives her the drink that she thought she had earned at the end of that song. Lauren Bacall realizes this guy's going to risk his life to give her a drink. And then
Yeah.
then she realizes that you are the man I fell in love with, or in her own way. You don't know if a romance is gonna, or it's funny. It may just be that they become a little family, in Key
It's
Largo in their
possible, yeah.
own way. Yeah, it's
Well,
fascinating.
it also says something about how good an actor she was. That she played the kind of the moral center of it all,
Right.
and
Right. That's
and
exactly right.
that I've seen her in different things, and she does. You see less Lauren Bacall, and you see more of the character that she plays in this place. She obviously is someone who's been through a few storms, and so she's not as intimidated by the storm that's coming or the people that come in the hotel. She's probably seen worse,
Right.
and she sees something in Bogart's character in that that she sees through some of his facade. I'm certain, and
And I love the way they meet, and also from the way they meet, she's read his letter, she's read her husband's letters. Bogart's um, read the letters from the father, and it made for the best little shortcut of meeting each other really on a deep level that he knew, okay, so what do you know about my son? And he tells the story about maybe fishing. I can't remember when they first meet. Tells
yeah,
the father the story about, and then he knows what's inscribed on her ring, and I think it's Evermore, maybe something like that.
yeah,
And so instantly you've got this bond. Just a beautiful way to create, and you think that actually happened in where people and I there was heard this being discussed where people at the end of World War II, there were true situations. Yes, my company mate died, and I promised I'd go back and see his folks. And keeping that promise, this probably happened thousands of times after World War II, a similar situation. But what a great way to get to know people, and the little snippets of life that they chose to pull them together
yeah,
without a lot of exposition. Just and
yeah,
and
yeah,
and then that big picture thing, I just even with it made kind of makes you think even with the House Un-American Activity. I think Bogey hated what the House Un-American Activities Committee was doing, and so it kind of brings up that
yeah,
cynicism. We went through all this, and yet we still gotta fight the Roccos, the Roccos of the world, be they publicity seeking congressmen who are preying on our fears, or ex gangsters. There's still the Roccos out there. Is there a real Key Largo? Key West, I've heard
yes.
of.
Key Largo is once thought the largest island in the archipelago. It's not, but it is called that. It's one of the Florida Keys.
Hey, oh man, I got to get there while they're still there. I got to
Yeah,
get there.
Key West is not the most western key either, but I think it's the last one that has any city on it. They
Wow.
have some that are unoccupied or have somebody camped out on it or something. I don't know, but yeah, Key Largo is one of the larger keys down there. But
Have we left out that I gotta, I can't wait to go. Have we left out a big, like we almost left out Ingrid Bergman. Oh,
yeah,
whoops. We left
no,
out,
we managed to get Lauren Bacall in there, and
oh, that scene where she's sleeping and and she'd already told him, she had told him off. She had said, you are a coward. And yet he's sleeping and they're all kind of coming and then he caresses the side of her face. It just, oh, what a beautiful little scene. Just, ah. Oh, I know one character though that, who shows up later in Batman. Was that from Casablanca? There's a character that I think that's in Casablanca. One of the characters who's going to show up later in Batman. He's oh, I looked it up.
oh gosh,
I The big guy, along with
oh
what?
Victor
No, no,
Buono.
no, I'm wrong. He's in Key Largo. He's in Key Largo. Angel is the character of Angel. I
Oh
think
really?
Angel shows up in Batman later.
Let
Angel,
me check the
and God,
cast.
when Angel won't go out, I love the end of that film. Angel won't go out. You got Rocco trapped in the bottom of the boat, and and Bogey's on top of the
Dan
boat
Seymour is the
holding.
name of the. Yeah,
Yes,
he played.
Dan
He
Seymour
played.
shows up in Batman.
Yeah, he played King Tut, I think, or something in that.
That's right. That's exactly
I thought
right.
that was Victor Buono, but he played something else in some other.
Victor Buono played somebody else, but Dan Seymour shows up as Angel, and Rocco shoots him just because. And then the scene, what we can see, what Bogey can see, and what Rocco thinks we can't see are just brilliant. Here, I'll throw out this gun. You're thinking I'm going to take the money all myself. Here, I'll throw out the money, and then he throws out a gun. And then it's so cool that there's no suspense. This is the time when we should not have suspense because Bogey looks down and you can see, there's Edward G. Robinson with the gun that he's going to shoot him with, and it plays out
Yeah,
beautifully the end of that film.
it bears to be mentioned that Bogart had a great respect for Edward G. Robinson, who at that time was kind of a falling star,
Right.
and but yet he treated him like he was the star of the picture. He would not.
Oh,
They would not start filming until he was ready. Bogart wouldn't go on set until he knew that Robinson was ready to go on set. Often
yeah.
he would escort him from his trailer to the set. Um, he was there in all of the one shots, feeding him the lines where
Oh,
usually a production assistant would do. And so he was something that says something about Bogart himself. He is an
oh,
actor's actor, and
right.
had great respect for Edward G. Robinson, who, of course, could say so much with a straight delivered line.
Oh,
And
yeah.
we could go over his movies for about as long as we've done
Oh,
this, and he did. I mean, just his last film scene, which was in Soylent Green,
yep.
was something that made that whole garbage picture good.
Yeah.
And but he before that had done, of course, a lot of gangster movies, but also comedy based on his gangster persona. I don't remember the name of the picture, but it was one where he's a gang leader after Prohibition is gone, and they decide to go legit, except that the beer that they were doing during Prohibition didn't taste any good, and that was the plot of the whole thing. And so he's trying to be legitimate businessman, having never done that before, and it was played for comedy. It was done very well. He was just great in that.
Oh,
But
man.
once again, we get off the subject and past our hour. But
Pastor, I'll say, like, you when you reminded me of how the vagaries of life are treated in the film, and he's come off these gangster pictures. Gangster pictures aren't that popular anymore. He's more of a fading star, kind of playing and that's coming true in the film Key Largo. It reminded me of, you're right, that last scene in Soylent Green. He knows he's actually dying of cancer,
yeah, nobody
and
else
as
did.
he
Yeah,
acts that scene, and
yeah,
it's just poignant.
it
It's
really is.
incredible. Brings, yeah, yeah. But you're right. We have gone past our hour.
Once again, but had
Yes.
fun doing it. So I
Oh
hope
my God.
I hope everybody here enjoys what we're doing, and if you've done so, please.
Oh, and yeah. And you remember in the Roger Ebert commentary, he said cigarettes are just so critical to these scenes and the lighting of the scenes. But would I actually bring a cigarette? No, these are the old candy
You
cigarettes.
can still
Remember?
buy those, can you?
But if you're trying to quit
I didn't know
smoking
that.
these films, good luck.
Yeah, they said after Bogart was diagnosed with esophageal cancer, he changed
Oh,
from filterless Chesterfields to filter cigarettes. He didn't quit smoking. This is 1950s. I think they figured that it was good for cancer to smoke, but
exactly. They thought the
yeah,
filters. Oh,
had to do
it's funny.
something.
I was thinking about Ebert's. He talked about it gives the actor something to do to hold the cigarette. Continuities
For
are trouble,
timing.
but
Yeah,
as
yeah,
long as it timing, but still they were brilliant. They worked through it anyway.
yeah,
Gives the actor something to do. How they smoke, and it also gives you another layer in the mise en scene. It gives you
yeah,
another dimension. There's the smoke. There's the person. There's the background, and how they light it. just incredible. But my
Yeah.
God, I forgot about this. Oh, why he would have died. Yes. Yep. Why he, how we lost Bogey. Yep, that's
Yeah.
right. Oh God.
And it's in his 50s, you know. So
Oh, geez. That's you know what? Just for a more
it's one of these
cheerful
things that
note, go
makes you,
watch The African Queen.
well, yeah,
Yeah.
we would have gotten there one day, but that was there's one thing for the African Queen I'd like to say. I saw this that did John Huston direct that too? The
I
African
think
Queen.
so.
Yeah,
I
he
think
claimed
so.
that when Katharine Hepburn, between
Yeah.
shots, decided to take a walk into the jungle, he said to the crew, "I feel sorry for the jungle." She was a tough lady.
He's gonna tell him what? Yeah, that's oh yeah. So we've got plenty more to cover. God, there's so many ideas. We'll figure it
Yeah,
out.
we've been given ideas to go to westerns. I'm thinking, even Mel Brooks movies. Although it's hard to talk about comedies because comedy I've always thought was kind of lightning in a bottle. Either work or they don't.
Yeah,
Um,
that's a good point.
but if you have any thoughts, please do put it in the comments below. We'd be glad to. We'll read them all and we'll comment on as many of them as we can. So thank you for joining us, and until next time, don't go far.